Inside, I want to kill myself. We are on an 0-7 run over the last 2 days. After tonight was just complete bullshit. So that's how I'm going to start off this show. Horrible Sunday, 1-5. I don't even know what to tell you about that. I just don't want to do this anymore. I have never seen anything like this, man. With the slump continuing, 2 straight losses, not a good day at all. 0-4. I just have not had a good season, man. What can this slump that I'm on? The slump continues. I've reached a new peak, actually. With I'm gonna burn my Bruins hat, man. I don't know what is going on with the Bruins. March 8th, is that what it is? I don't even know. It's March 9th, I think. Who even knows, man? I don't know what day it is anymore. I don't even know what day it is anymore, man. Back with you after the worst day that I could possibly have. Back with you, as I always am. Until I die, at least. 0-2 yesterday, and yesterday did not go well for me. 0-5. The worst month that I've ever had in my 18 years doing this. I don't know what to even tell you about this anymore. Broke the slump yesterday as the slump continues. The slump continues. Somebody fucking kill me, please. I don't even know what I should do at this point other than potentially end it all. What's up, everybody? It's Toad, back with you with Toad Stool Sports. It is Tuesday, January 20th. Oh, we had a winning day on the show yesterday, so at least there was that. College basketball was the only really bad thing about it. Iona did not get there. We started out pretty bad, actually. We started out, I think, 0-2 with the first couple of plays. Iona, I don't know what else to say. They suck. Later in college basketball, we did get the cover with Southeastern Louisiana, although they did not win the game outright. They were winning the game outright in the second half, but they did not win. They did get the cover, though. Northern Colorado did not get it done either, unfortunately, because that was a money line favorite there. So in that case, you actually would have been better off just having a spread bet on it. But long term, it is better to play the money line in ranges like that. So I thought they would win the game. It didn't happen. They were way behind. Well, not way behind, but they were in a hole at halftime, and they did come back. They had some chances to win that game, but that didn't happen. Hockey was 2-0. We won with the Pittsburgh Penguins pretty easily, and San Jose Sharks also really easy. They're out to a 3-0 lead, I think, immediately, so no sweat on that. There was the Sharks won a goaltender fight in the game as well. I don't know what Bobrovsky was doing, man. Like, there was a fight going on down near the other end. I don't think I've ever seen this before, or at least it's rare. Bobrovsky, Florida's goalie, is just like, I'm going to just go all the way across the ice and get involved in this fight and pick a fight with the other team's goalie. Like, what are you talking about? At this point, it's like midway through the game. It's 3-1. San Jose. I don't know what that was. And then he lost the fight, of course. And Nedeljkovic beat him, was able to take him down. It was so stupid, dude. Not a fan of Bobrovsky, I'll tell you that. That was ridiculous. I don't know what he was doing. He deserved to lose that fight, and he did. He was also pulling hair during the fight, too, which is definitely a bitch move. We did not get there with the Clippers. That was bad. They couldn't shoot from 3, for one thing, but they didn't do enough to cover that game. They did win, but they actually had a decent, later portion of the game, but they never could really get margin in that game, so that was bad. The Jazz did cover. The Jazz were pretty much in that game for the entire first half and then into the second half. Then they wound up actually falling behind by probably more than 20, but they did get back within the number there. And then we did get the win with Miami in the college football championship. Miami was able to cover. They were able to keep that game low scoring enough. It was pretty much what I said, although I think if you had the under, you had a fairly bad beat on that. With the game, I'm pretty sure went over the, it landed on 48. I think the number was 47. It went over on that final field goal. Man, that's brutal. It came down to a situation where maybe if Miami didn't have any timeouts left or whatever, then Indiana probably would have been able to run the clock out at that point and wouldn't have kicked again. you did have a chance. Miami actually had a chance to win the game at the end after that field goal happened. And they were in Indiana territory, and Beck threw an interception to finish the game. It was just a miscommunication. I talked about it last night. Thanks for people who hung out for my bracketology show last night. Boring stuff, probably. Not to me, but maybe to everybody else. But yeah, there was a miscommunication there. I think Beck and the receiver pretty clearly thought that it was going to be a different route or something. I don't know what that was. You don't want to end the game on that, man, but that was what it was. But at least Miami did cover for us. They had a decent game plan, man. I think they outgained Indiana in the game, and they had more yards per play in the game too. So, although as I mentioned last night, a lot of it was because they had one huge running play for a touchdown. But yeah, I mean, Miami was in that game, so I think the handicap was right on for me in that one. It seemed like nobody wanted Miami, professionals, recreational bettors. I didn't hear anybody want Miami in that game, so I don't know. Sometimes it's good to be on an island. But we'll move on to today. I'm being very selective today. Two college basketball plays and one hockey play today, and that's it for today. Tyson, what's up? Jeffrey, what's up? Kyle, what's up? Mavs blew out the Knicks. Yeah, I don't know. I wasn't really paying attention to what was going on in that game. The Mavs are without, Anthony Davis. They were without Washington. Was it Brunson return game there? I don't know. Because I don't know. I leaned to the Mavs covering, but there were a lot of things going on. Way too many moving parts to that game that I wanted no part of it. Might fade Dallas in their next game, though. Well, actually, I don't know. I think I saw who they play next, and maybe that's not a good idea. Mr. Pinsey, what's up? Let's get into today. We have college basketball up first. I got to zoom in here, obviously. All right. We have a bunch of college basketball here. I'm going to try to not belabor this. Brunson played. Yeah, okay. Yeah, it was, even if he had a good game, I don't know, the return home spot, there's a lot of times there's just a chemistry issue. The rest of the team has a tendency to not play well. Our star player is back, whatever. So that was definitely a factor in that game. Garrett, you got to win on Miami. There you go. Nice. All right. First game up that really is of note here today, we have, if you want me to talk about this isolated 6 p.m. game, I don't have a whole lot to say. Toledo at UMass in the MAC here. Toledo, they are coming off a pretty tough game against Kent State. They've actually played Miami, Ohio, and Kent State all in a row, and now they're going from Ohio, Kent State, which is in Ohio, over to Massachusetts, which is a little bit of a weird travel spot. It's weird that UMass is in the MAC here. And then Toledo does have Bowling Green and Akron up after this, and those are decent teams too. So you could make the argument this is kind of a sandwich spot here. So I would probably be leaning to UMass in this one. UMass just took a pretty ugly loss on the road to Northern Illinois. Now they're coming back home off of that. Northern Illinois way worse than Northern Iowa. UMass coming back home. They've played mostly road games in conference so far. Their only home conference loss, I believe, is 1 point loss to Bowling Green, which is not that bad. Oh, no, wait, my mistake. They did lose to Kent State earlier in the season. That's still not that bad either, though. But I would lean to UMass in that game. UMass looks like they are getting some of the money. They're a 1.5 point favorite. 99% of the cash on them. 75% of the tickets on Toledo. Public kind of ignoring UMass for the most part. Big Ten Network at 6:30 p.m. We have Minnesota and Ohio State in this Big Ten matchup here. Minnesota, they did have a decent-looking record until they started dropping games recently. They've lost 3 in a row. They played competitive in all 3 games, pretty much, kind of at least. USC, Wisconsin, and then Illinois, they only lost by 10 on the road, which really isn't that bad of a result. Now it's a second straight road game, though, and then they do have Nebraska after this. Now, Minnesota, I don't think they're really going to overlook anybody at this point, but it's kind of a matter of how tired are they after having all these big games. Now they got to go to Ohio State. Ohio State did just beat UCLA. They're staying at home. They do have Michigan next, so there's a possible look ahead here. So it's possible they don't pay attention to Minnesota, and that would be the worry there. Beating UCLA is a decent win. They're a program with a lot of history, obviously, and they've been decent this year, and I think they will be a tournament team when everything is done here. The money is coming in on Ohio State, it looks like, for what that's worth. They dropped from 8 to 7.5. 80% of the cash on Ohio State, 50-50 on the tickets. I don't know if I agree with laying it with Ohio State in this one. Total's not really that high at 144.5. The money is saying that. I don't really have a strong opinion, though, one way or the other in that game. So do with that information what you want, but, I don't want to mislead people. So sometimes I will, if I don't have a strong opinion, I will have to default to what the market is saying. But I could see that not being the greatest spot for, really either team there. But I guess if that's the case, maybe the better team does just show up and get the job done. I don't know. UCF, I'll talk about that whenever I get to it. Akron at Buffalo is a somewhat interesting game in the MAC. There's some interesting MAC games here. Akron, they're just on a roll, but they're kind of beating up on the lower tier teams in the MAC, except Bowling Green was a pretty good win on the road. Akron's coming off beating Western Michigan at home. Buffalo, I just don't really think is that good, though. Akron does play Ohio next, which I guess there's a possible look-ahead component to that, but Buffalo's nowhere near as good as their overall record looks. They had a really weak out-of-conference schedule, and they're coming off a barn burner against Miami, Ohio. They went to overtime against Miami, Ohio, at Miami, Ohio, and they almost dealt Miami, Ohio their first loss. So Buffalo, I would not want any part of Buffalo after they do that, even though, of course, they shouldn't overlook Akron, because Akron, I think, is still the best team in the MAC. But Buffalo also played Kent State the game before that in a pretty close game as well. So I think I would have to be on the Akron side if I was going to play that game. But the money is not agreeing with that. They dropped from 9 to 8. 67% of tickets on them, 98% of the cash on Buffalo. I don't agree with that market read, though. I see nothing to really like about Buffalo there, other than the fact that if they have any legs left, then yeah, they'll try to show up in that game. But it looks like a very tired spot. Indiana at number 3, Michigan on Peacock at 7 p.m. Indiana's on a 3-game losing streak, and they couldn't get it done at home against Iowa. I'm kind of pissed about that. The score in that game was a little misleading. It was a loss for us on the show, but Iowa went to the free throw line way more, so that was one component to what happened there. Indiana had a horrific shooting game. They actually had more field goal attempts in the game. Usually when that's the case, you're not going to lose the game by 17 points, but they shot horribly all over the place in the game. So there were definitely some outliers to that game where maybe there's going to be some regression on the part of, positive regression on the part of Indiana. Maybe they'll actually do a little bit better here. So I don't mind Indiana in this game, plus the points. Michigan's not exactly in a terrible spot. They are returning from the Pacific Coast, though. So they are having to travel multiple time zones here. They swept the Pacific Coast trip, Washington and Oregon. Not great wins, but good enough. And they do have Ohio State next, and Nebraska. But I don't think they're really going to overlook Indiana. Although Indiana is kind of in the middle of the pack here. They're lower than Ohio State in the Big Ten standings, so I don't know. But overall in that game, I think the biggest component to that is that Indiana just looked way worse than they actually were in their prior games. So I would lean to taking the points with Indiana in that one. Michigan down from 17.5 to 16. So the line is moving in that direction. Michigan extremely public, 92% of the tickets, 59% of the cash, so way less of the cash. That's a huge cash disparity right now, although these numbers are still in flux. CBS Sports, UCF is at number 9, Iowa State. UCF is coming off playing pretty close against Arizona in their last game at home. They only lost by 7, although if you look at how this game went, Arizona had a pretty massive lead at various parts of this game. They were way ahead early. They led for most of the game. The lead slipped, but then Arizona built up the lead again to double digits later in the game. And Arizona was still winning this game by 11 with less than 4 minutes to go. So it wasn't really as close as the final score looked. UCF just made a late run in garbage time when the game was already over. So I don't know if I want to really say that, UCF totally took Arizona to the wire or anything like that. They didn't. But I still think you're getting the better team of the Iowa State here, and Iowa State is coming off a pretty ugly loss to Cincinnati. And I could kind of explain that by talking about how Iowa State took their first loss of the season in the game before that at Kansas. And I talk about how when a team loses when they take their first loss of the season, sometimes it will hang them over into the next game. They had to travel again. It was a second straight road game. Not a good setup for Iowa State, but now they're going to be back home here. I think they will show up for this. I would lay the points with Iowa State in this one. I know Iowa State, they have not faced a difficult conference schedule yet, although West Virginia's been okay, and they destroyed them. They did win at Baylor, which is still not that easy to do. Oklahoma State, yeah, I know they're not as good as their record looks or whatever, but they're not awful. So, and then, yeah, of course, trying to win at Kansas is never easy. So I'm not going to say that Iowa State's just like not battle tested or anything like that, which I've heard that argument being thrown around. Out of conference, they did beat St. John's. Purdue, of course, they wrecked Purdue at Purdue, which was one of the reasons why they were way up near the top of the rankings. Ken Baum, source of truth, still has Iowa State in the top 10. But yes, I would lay the points with Iowa State in this one. They're down from 14 to 13, 86% of the tickets, 99% of the cash. There's no way that that's accurate. They might be a public side here, but I don't think the public is getting this one wrong if that's what they're doing. I also don't think the public has a tendency to really be heavy on like huge favorites like that. So I do like Iowa State to bounce back in that one. The next game up is LSU at number 16, Florida. This is one of my plays. Let's do it, man. I'm being real selective here, man. We're going to take the points with LSU here against Florida. LSU, I know they're not really as good as their record might make them look, although Ken Baum really does not have LSU being that bad. He's got them 44th in the country. They're better offensively than defensively, but they cracked the top 80 in both, which is not that bad. They're a mid-tempo team, so hopefully they won't be thrown off too much by Florida being a fast-paced team, which I think they still are. Yeah, they are. Even though, yes, Ken Baum has Florida being very unlucky, LSU's on the unlucky side of things as well here. So I think the number is just really high in this one, man. I think Ken Baum has this number being close to like 11 or 12. LSU had a nice win against Missouri, and why I think that's good is that they ended a 4-game losing streak. So a lot of times when a team ends a losing streak like that, it's like they get the monkey off their back. LSU didn't have a conference win until then as well, so it's like that takes a load off your shoulders, you know. When everything's going wrong, you can't win a game in conference, you finally get that win. It can let you play looser, just go out and play. So I think that's good that happened. Meanwhile, I do not like the spot for Florida here. Even though, yes, I agree, Florida might actually even be the best team in the SEC still. Pretty much all their losses are to good teams. I get it, although they did lose to Missouri. But look at this run that Florida's on right now, man. They beat Georgia. They beat Tennessee. We tried to fade them at Oklahoma. Didn't work. They won anyway in that game. They beat Vandy, and now that's what they're coming off of. Florida just dealt Vandy their second loss of the season, and that was really a battle for who's the best in the SEC, if you think about it, because everybody else is kind of behind. I know A&M, Texas A&M is at the top of the standings conference-wise, but they're not even ranked, so pretty much everyone's going to agree it's between Florida and Vandy right now, and Florida just beat Vandy. That was a big-time statement win, man, for Florida, and now they're coming off of that, and they host LSU. I just don't know if they're going to pay that much attention to LSU, a team that has one conference win, and Florida plays Auburn next. And while I think that game means more to Auburn because that's going to be tournament revenge for Auburn, as Auburn lost in its Final Four revenge. Auburn lost in the Final Four to Florida last year. I still think Florida's going to see that as being a bigger game as well because it's Auburn, and it is the rematch of that Final Four matchup. So I think this does kind of set up like a sandwich spot. So I do like, I do like LSU in this game plus the points. I think there's line value in it as well. I think Florida is about, I think they're still maybe slightly undervalued. Ken Baum actually has them in the top 10. So, I mean, they're slightly underranked, I should say. But both of the teams in this game are underrated right now, Florida and LSU. So that's what I meant to say. And then as far as SEC tournament revenge or anything like that between Florida and Auburn, there isn't any. Florida won the SEC tournament last year, I believe, but they did not encounter Auburn during the tournament. So the money, by the way, is on LSU here. It looks like a pros versus Joes scenario. You can get 15.5 now on this, it looks like. 62% of the tickets are on Florida, 72% of the cash on LSU. So that's what we're going to do. I know it's a somewhat high total at 158. Of course, Florida's going to play fast, but I like LSU in that game. That is one of the plays. Yes, sir. Thanks for hanging out, man. All right. NC State at number 18, Clemson on ACC Network. This is an interesting game, too, man. I think NC State's kind of under the radar here just because they fell out of the rankings. I have them as as easily getting into the tournament right now, though we'll see. But I think they're also in a bounce-back spot because they just took a really, really hideous loss to Georgia Tech. And if you think about that setup, NC State had just played 2 road games. They put up 113 points against Florida State on the road. I know Florida State's terrible, but whenever you put up 113 points, you're going to be feeling pretty good, man. And they had this Clemson game on deck. I think it was a sandwich spot. They got caught. I didn't expect them to lose outright, but they did. And now NC State's in a spot where they lost as a double-digit favorite. And I talk about when double-digit favorites lose, you're going to get a lot of focus out of them in the next game. I think you will here. Clemson just beat Miami. That's a nice win. I don't think they're going to overlook NC State, but Miami's been hot this year. So that was a big win for Clemson, as Miami's right near the top of the conference right now, ahead of NC State. So I would definitely prefer the NC State side in this one. And Clemson's not really laying that much of a price, 3.5, so it looks almost too easy to lay the points, in my opinion. 76% of the tickets, 90% of the cash on Clemson, but I do not agree with that. If the cash percentage even winds up being that way, I don't know. Clemson, I think, is definitely going to be a public side, though. I would take the points with NC State in this one. Total's also pretty low, in the low 140s. Clemson likes to slow it down, which makes it more difficult to cover as a favorite. We have 2 newcomers to the rankings, and it is, I think one of these teams is not really like the other. Number 24, St. Louis, has now cracked into the rankings, and they are good. There's no doubt about it. Ken Baum has them 29th, so they're really not that far from being ranked properly. St. Louis is legit, man. I think they're going to get into the tournament even if they do not win the A-10, as long as they don't really screw up. They got Kareem Abdul-Jabbar there, man. We might finally get to see him in the tournament after Drake ruined it for us all when he was on Indiana State 2 years ago, I think is when that was.
Boy, I'm really starting to dislike the Drake.
Hate the Drake.
All right. St. Louis is playing at Duquesne. This isn't really an interesting game. I just think the only thing interesting about it really is that St. Louis is now in the rankings. And a lot of times when a team first cracks into the rankings, you want to look to go against that team because that ranking number puts a target on their back to some extent, so teams get more focused to play them. That can also make the team themselves more complacent, hey, we're ranked now, we're awesome. But St. Louis, they're coming off beating Richmond. They destroyed Richmond. So it's a satisfying win for sure. Now they have to go on the road to Duquesne, maybe not the easiest spot, and they do have to face St. Bonaventure next, although Bonaventure doesn't even have a win in conference yet, so it's not like that's going to set up a look-ahead spot or anything. Duquesne isn't really a team that's going to draw your attention, though. Duquesne just bounced back with a win over Fordham, which I actually thought was a bad spot. I actually liked Fordham in that game because Duquesne had almost beaten Dayton the game before that, and they had this St. Louis game on deck. But they beat Fordham, and what that will do is break a losing streak for Duquesne. So I think that will give them some momentum coming into this one. So I would probably lean towards taking the points with Duquesne in this one. The money does seem to agree. St. Louis is a 9.5-point favorite, 60% of the tickets on them. 82% of the cash on Duquesne, though. And then the other game Miami, Ohio is in the rankings at 25th. Where does Ken Baum have them, by the way? Oh, let me see. Ken Baum, where do you have Miami, Ohio? Oh, yeah, 94th. Okay. I mean, come on, man. Like, and I know Miami, Ohio, like maybe they're a little bit better than we thought they were at the beginning of the season, but they've still faced an extremely weak schedule. Them being ranked 25th is frankly a complete joke. I think they're finally going to lose today, and I'll talk about that now. They're playing at Kent State, which, first of all, Kent State is one of the best teams in the MAC, along with, yes, Miami, Ohio is also one. I think Miami, Ohio is slightly better than Kent State as well, but there's a reason why Kent State is a favorite in this game, and that's because they're at home, and they're not that much worse than Miami, Ohio. Actually, excuse me, Miami, Ohio is the favorite. They're a small 1.5-point favorite. My mistake, but it's basically like a pick the winner type of price, and you know the public, if they see this game, they're going to be coming in on the Miami, Ohio side. But just like I said with St. Louis, Miami, Ohio is ranked in the top 25, and I think it's the case with both of these teams that I think even more so with Miami, Ohio, but these are programs that are not used to being in the rankings, man. I think St. Louis might have been, I don't know, probably within the last decade or so, there was one really good season for St. Louis. If you guys remember that, where they were a 4 seed, I think, in the tournament. It was a long time ago. It was back when they still had Rick Majerus. Was that his name? R.I.P. He was their coach back then. Former, I think, Utah coach prior to that, if I'm getting that right. Rick Majerus, yeah, whatever. That was a really, really good season for St. Louis, but I think they haven't been in the rankings probably since then. Miami, Ohio, I'm not even sure they've ever been ranked, to be honest. I can't remember a time where they were. So I think they're going to be feeling really high on themselves now, having that ranking number next to them. They're still undefeated. Things are getting a little ridiculous here. They just beat Buffalo, but again, Buffalo's not as good as their record looks. They're really not that good of a team. Buffalo's had a very weak schedule. Miami, Ohio also has. And now Miami, Ohio is coming off that win against Buffalo. The game went into overtime. Now they got to go on the road to a hostile environment at Kent State, man. And Kent State, these teams don't like each other. They're both in Ohio, so this is going to be a big game, man. Kent State just got by Toledo in their last game. Now they're coming into this game staying at home. I think the setup is a little bit better for Kent State, and you want to make it a little bit better for Kent State here. This game was close to making my card, man. I almost wanted to do it because I want to be on that game where Miami, Ohio finally loses. I want to be on it, man. I want to have it right. I have not tried to step in front of Miami, Ohio yet this season, even though I have leaned against them repeatedly. But I have not played a Miami, Ohio game yet this season, I don't believe. This is the spot that I've been the closest to doing it, man. This one is very close to being on my card. Miami, Ohio, they knocked Kent State out of the MAC tournament last year in the semifinals. So this is a MAC tournament revenge spot for Kent State. Oh, but it gets better than that because Miami, Ohio beat Kent State both regular season matchups last year as well, including winning by 9 at Kent State. So this is a rematch of that. And they won in overtime at Miami, Ohio. So this is a triple revenge spot for Kent State as well. It's got to be Kent State or pass in this game, man. That's what I would do. The public's not going to do it. They're just going to be on this shiny new toy, the undefeated team. Kent State was favored, actually, initially. Miami, Ohio went from a +1 underdog to a -1 favorite. They're public, 77% of the tickets, only 61% of the cash. The only way that I would play this game is taking the points with Kent State, man. But one of the main things keeping me off of it is Ken Baum has Kent State as one of the absolute luckiest teams in the country. He has them literally the luckiest team in the country. So that does worry me, even though Miami, Ohio is also very lucky. Both teams play fast, so it's going to be a fast-paced game. Kent State is very bad defensively, though, so that does worry me as well. Miami, Ohio is also worse defensively than offensively, but Kent State is a more lopsided team in that regard. So that does worry me a little bit. And then, let me see. Miami, Ohio, yeah, they're still 19th in Ken Baum's luck index. So they're very lucky as well. I would also not disagree with an over in this game, even though the number moved down to 168.5 from 172.5 on the total. I would not want to be sitting on an under ticket, even though you would tend to want to maybe go towards, I mean, as a better, you tend to want to play unders in games that are more like playoff type environments because the teams are going to be, it's almost going to become more of like a physical like playoff matchup. But this is a case where you got two fast-paced teams that don't play defense. So, I would definitely not want to be on an under in this one. But I like the Kent State side, man. That's how I would play that game. And close to being on my card. Seton Hall at St. John's. Finally, we're already in the 7 p.m. games. Big East matchup here on Fox Sports 1. Seton Hall, we faded them over the weekend. They were in a bad spot. They took a loss to Butler. Bad loss at home to Butler. Seton Hall as a favorite in that one. But you remember the spot. Seton Hall had just played UConn really close in the prior game, and they had the St. John's game on deck. So I thought it was a sandwich spot. That was one of our good plays on Saturday. Easy outright win for Butler as an underdog. Liked it. But part of that handicap, of course, was that Seton Hall would focus on St. John's in the next game. So I think they will. I think they're in a nice bounce back spot here. Whereas for St. John's, they just had a good win over Villanova, man. Now, I don't know that they're really going to overlook Seton Hall, but that was a bigger win against Villanova because Villanova is closer to them in the conference standings. So this game is Seton Hall or pass, in my opinion, even though there is a pacing disparity here where St. John's is going to try to go fast because that's what they do. Seton Hall is going to try to play slow. So the teams are going to be, it's going to be kind of a weird mismatch in that way. But both teams are better defensively than offensively, which is weird. So I could see this game being an under type of game as well. Now, as far as the side, I like Seton Hall. St. John's did drop from 11 to 10.5 here. 53% of the tickets, 63% of the cash on Seton Hall. So the money seems like it's agreeing with that. In a game where it seems like it's going to be defensive, not very high scoring, the points are going to be more to premium, so getting double digits seems a little bit, seems like a better idea in this style of game. The total did go up a little bit, though, to 145.5, but looks like the money is actually coming in on the under now. I would not disagree with an under in the game, but I would be looking towards Seton Hall plus the points. You know me, I don't really do totals, and maybe I should add that to my arsenal, but it's never really been a great part of my arsenal. What I need to do is, because I keep saying this and I don't really do it, I need to I need to just pay attention to what I say. Like, oh, I like this particular total. I want to just see if I get it right or not. You know what I mean? All right. ESPNU, I don't know why this game is televised. Well, I guess I do know why. It's because it's a Florida rivalry game between Florida State and Miami, but I don't know if this is a very good game. Now, Florida State, they did just take another loss to Wake Forest. They've lost 5 games in a row. You got to think they're at least going to show up for a game against Miami. Florida State, I mean, they're bad. They don't even have a conference win yet, but they're going to be at least probably fighting hard to try to get a conference win. And they're probably going to consider Miami to be a bigger brother to them at this point in basketball because Miami's just been the better program over the last several years anyway. Miami, I think, is in kind of a difficult spot because they just took a loss to Clemson in a big game, and they had not lost for a long time, man. That was a big game. They did lose by 10 on the road, but I talk about when a team has not lost for a long time. Miami had not lost since around Thanksgiving time when they lost to BYU. And when a team takes a loss after a long win streak, they can effectively lose the same game twice and lose again in the next game. You know what I mean? So it is possible that happens here. I know they're hosting a TV game, so sometimes that helps the team get up for it. And that's something that I actually maybe should I overlook it probably too often, but that is maybe something to think about. Although the thing that you really want to look for is it an isolated TV game? And this is not, because we're talking about a Tuesday night where there are a lot of games going on. But if it was like one of those Friday games where there's not a whole lot going on, maybe that would be more of a factor where, that's going to keep the team from overlooking their opponent. But I would lean towards Florida State here. Miami does have Syracuse next. And Syracuse, big name in basketball, and they're actually playing okay this year. Miami is up to a 12.5 point favorite from 10.5. 80% of the tickets, 76% of the cash on them. So they look public with less of the money on them, which doesn't surprise me. So, yeah, I would lean towards taking the points with Florida State in that one. All right, I am talking about all the TV games and such. SEC network has somewhat of an ugly SEC game, but I actually have a decent opinion on this one. I have a lot of opinions in these games today, man, so I'm being really selective with my two plays. This one was close to being a play for me, I'm going to be honest. Oklahoma at South Carolina. I was considering this. Oklahoma just had a really difficult game against Alabama, man. They hosted Alabama and took them right to the limit. They only lost by 2. Now they go on the road to face South Carolina. So I think they could be in a little bit of a hangover spot here, man. They have Missouri up next. Missouri, doesn't make it a huge look-ahead spot. Missouri's kind of middle of the pack. They're tournament bubble team right now. But South Carolina's at the absolute bottom of the conference, so it is possible to overlook them. But I guess one issue that I have with it is that Oklahoma is really going to be kind of desperate for some wins here, so I don't know. But that game against Alabama, tough game, man, that might hang them over here. And they did have to play Florida the game before that, too, although unfortunately for us, it wasn't close because I thought they caught Florida at a good time. For South Carolina here, South Carolina did just have a pretty big game as well, though, against Auburn. So that's my other hesitation with this, is that South Carolina is debatably not in a good spot either because they were big underdogs at Auburn, and South Carolina didn't go away, even though they were down fairly big late in the game. They were down by 9 points with 3.5 minutes left. South Carolina close to within one possession in the final 30 seconds. They got it down to 3. So South Carolina put in a big effort in that game, man. So both teams are coming off big efforts. I like South Carolina in the game, but it's not on my card. They did flip from a 1-point dog to a pick 'em. So don't really see the percentages on that one yet. It seems like maybe the early money is agreeing with South Carolina there. That would be the way that I would lean as well. DePaul at Butler. A lot of what we do here, man, once we get into conference play, a lot of it is like zigzagging, if that makes sense, where you want to just fade what happened in the last games, right? Like if one team did well in their last game and the other team didn't, you want to just do the opposite in the next game. You know what I mean? That's what we got to do. Do the opposite, baby. Always do the opposite.
Yeah, I should do the opposite. I should.
If every instinct you have is wrong, then the opposite would have to be right.
Yes. I will do the opposite. I used to sit here and do nothing and regret it for the rest of the day. So now I will do the opposite and I will do something.
Do the opposite. All right. DePaul, they just beat Marquette. Now, I know it's not a great win. Marquette is a bottom dweller, unfortunately for them, in the Big East this year. DePaul is actually in the middle of the pack in the Big East, believe it or not. Very, very strange Big East this year, although DePaul's wins are against pretty bad teams, Xavier, Marquette, and Georgetown. Now, DePaul's going on the road to Butler. Not going to be an easy spot necessarily for DePaul to have to go to. Although, DePaul's in the Chicago area, so, I guess it's not that bad of a travel spot. They're probably kind of used to it. But I think Butler is in the worst spot any way you look at it, though, because Butler did just pull off that big upset at Seton Hall. So, for me, it would be DePaul or pass in this one. I think Butler is coming off the bigger game, but Butler did break a losing streak, and Butler has faced a more difficult conference schedule so far, quite obviously, as they've already played UConn, Villanova, Creighton, St. John's. They've already played all the best teams in the conference. So Butler might be maybe a little bit better than their record looks right now. That was a good win against Seton Hall, though. Now, it did break a losing streak, so sometimes that gives you some new momentum, but I think I would prefer DePaul in this one. Although I actually don't love the spot really for either team, but Butler's down from 8 to 7. The money seems to agree with me on DePaul here. 50-50 on the tickets and 91% of the cash on DePaul. I don't disagree with it, so that's that. Looking at the Missouri Valley here, Evansville caught my eye because they did just play really tough against Bradley. Evansville's had a few decent games in a row. That was a pretty big game against one of the better teams in the conference. But now I think they could be in maybe possible hangover mode here or letdown mode off of that big game against Bradley. Having to go to Illinois, Chicago now, who actually seems like they're not quite as bad as maybe we thought they were. They've been pretty competitive in this conference, although I worry because they just beat Drake, which I thought might be a letdown spot because Illinois, Chicago had beaten Illinois State on the road, and then Northern Iowa on the road in the prior 2 games. But now they're on a run of those 3 games, and now beating Drake, who won the conference last year, even though they're a totally different team this year. They have Bradley on deck, so I think this, I don't know, man. I mean, to me, it looks like a sandwich spot that Illinois-Chicago is in here. So I think it's a bad spot for both teams. I just thought it was interesting from a handicapping perspective because when I first saw it, I'm like, Evansville's in a terrible spot here after that close call. But then I looked at it and I'm like, well, Illinois-Chicago's in a sandwich spot. And do they really deserve to be laying 9 points? They're up from 8 to 9 with juice, but we have 50-50 on the tickets and 95% of the cash on Evansville. So money looks like it is maybe coming back on Evansville. It's a low total in the high 130s, meaning the points are maybe more at a premium in this game. I'd probably agree with leaning towards Evansville, but man, I think both teams are in bad spots in that one. So I might not disagree with that tick up on the total where it's gone up a little bit, even though low totals more often than not go under, but that one has gone up 3 points, and maybe it's because both teams are in bad spots. We have Oklahoma State at TCU in the Big 12 here. Oklahoma State just beat Kansas State. Decent win for Oklahoma State. And they do have Iowa State on deck. And that's also actually going to be a second matchup. So it's a little bit of revenge maybe because Oklahoma State did lose at Iowa State, although they played pretty respectably in that game. So maybe the spot sets up a little bit better for TCU here. TCU, I really don't think TCU is as bad as their record looks, man. I mean, if you look at their conference play so far, their conference play has been pretty brutal. They beat Baylor, and then they had to go on the road to Kansas. They took them to overtime. They played at home against Arizona. Not easy. And then they had to go to BYU, and they only lost by 6 in that game. So this TCU team, I think they're better than they look, man. Better than their record looks. And they just took a really ugly loss to Utah. And if you remember, I liked Utah in that game. That almost made my card. I'm kind of pissed I didn't add it because TCU was coming off just a brutal stretch, man. In that game at BYU, having to play back-to-back games in elevation or 2 straight games in elevation off of the big one against BYU and almost getting that win. Pretty clear flat spot against Utah. Utah is not a good team. That was a bad loss for TCU. Now that they're back at home, I expect them to show up in this game. I like TCU in this game. And people, I think the public is not going to want to lay points here. Like, look at the number versus what these teams' records are. Oklahoma State's 14-4. TCU's 11-7, and they only have 1 Big 12 win. Who's going to want to lay 8.5 points with TCU, right? Like, the line, it's one of those misleading lines. Like, it makes no sense unless you dig into it further and you see that TCU's faced a way more difficult schedule out of conference and so far in the Big 12. TCU's way more battle-tested. I would lay the points if I was going to play it. TCU did drop from 9 to 8.5, though. The money looks like it's kind of on the Oklahoma State side right now. 56% of the tickets, 66% of the cash on them. But to me, they look like they set up as maybe being a potential public underdog in this game, though. And you know me, I really like to fade public underdogs because when you do that, you're fading the public and playing a team that you know is supposed to be the better team in the matchup at the same time. So, yeah, I like TCU in that one. Rutgers is at Iowa on the Big Ten Network at 8:30 p.m. Eastern. Rutgers, not a very good team. They're coming off a decent performance, only losing by 9 at Wisconsin. I think that game was pretty out of hand, though, and maybe it got a little bit cosmetic for Rutgers at the end. Now another road game, 3 road games in 4 games. Rutgers has not looked good on the road so far, so I don't know if I trust them. And for Iowa, you know, I mean, Iowa could still overlook Rutgers, though. Iowa did just get a nice win over Indiana, although it was also a bounce-back win after Iowa had lost 3 games in a row, so they ended a losing streak, so that might propel them forward with some new momentum, and they are in one of those spots where they're returning home, and the last time they were at home, they lost. So teams tend to do well in college basketball in that particular type of spot. After they lost when they were at home, they went out on the road, now they come back home. They're more focused in a spot like that because they know they lost last time they were on their home floor. So I don't really want to fade Iowa here, but the money is coming in on Iowa for now, and I guess I would somewhat agree with that. I don't know. I mean, they do have USC on deck. I mean, Iowa's not really a team that I really want to lay points with, though. They're up from 18.5 to 19, 50-50 on the tickets, 78% of the cash coming in on Iowa. Fairly strong market read on Iowa for the time being, but total also very low at 138. Both of these teams play slow. Rutgers is very, very deficient offensively, though. So Iowa might still be able to get that thing done, but I don't know. I have mixed opinions on that game, really. So the market read is pretty strongly on Iowa for the time being, though. So do with that information what you want to, I guess. But that's what I will say about that game. Oh, man. Oh, my neck is killing me right now. Yeah, don't have a whole lot else to say about that, but that is a TV game there. But, yes, Iowa plays really slow, so laying huge points with Iowa is not really totally appealing to me. Boise at Wyoming. Interesting game, I think. Wyoming has been a little bit better than we thought, maybe, in the Mountain West so far. Boise just broke a long loss streak with a win over Colorado State. I still think Boise's not as bad as they look. They had a really ugly start to conference play, but they did have some difficult games in conference play so far, so maybe this will give them some new momentum here. They really got to focus on winning games here, man, if they want any shot at doing anything in the Mountain West, although, of course, it'll come down to the Mountain West tournament, of course, as well. But I think the bottom teams don't make it into the tournament, so Boise needs to at least do that. Although I think they will. I don't think they're as bad as they look. Wyoming, though, did just lose at Fresno, so I think they might have been looking ahead to Boise. So I think Wyoming probably will show up as well for this game. Because Boise's been such a big name in the conference, Wyoming has flipped from a 1-point dog to a pick 'em. So it looks like the market read is saying Wyoming in this one, which would be another pretty bad loss for Boise if that happens. 50-50 on the tickets, 78% of the cash on Wyoming for what that's worth. That is what the market is saying. UT Martin at Southeast Missouri State. I almost put this on my card on the Southeast Missouri State side because look at the line in this game. UT Martin is 15-4 overall, 7-1 in the Ohio Valley Conference. SEMO is 9-10 overall and 4-4 in the Ohio Valley, and yet they're like a 2.5, 3-point favorite. Nobody is going to think that line makes any sense, but obviously the odds makers are not throwing money away. It looks way too easy to take UT Martin as the underdog here, and I don't like the spot for UT Martin, as they did just beat Lindenwood, which is a pretty big win. UT Martin sitting atop the conference now. Lindenwood was one of the teams in the mix to win the conference. I still think SEMO is too, though, as I mentioned in my bracketology last night. I think SEMO is way under the radar right now, and UT Martin might overlook them going on the road here. And up next, they play Little Rock. Little Rock is in the mix right now as one of the 6-2 teams in the conference right now, right behind UT Martin. And Little Rock is actually the team that eliminated UT Martin from the Ohio Valley tournament last year as well. So there is a revenge motive there. So that makes it a pretty big look-ahead spot for UT Martin in this game because Little Rock is the team that ended their season last year. So, and they haven't played them yet this year, I don't believe. So they're going to want that game, man. So I think it's a bad spot. I prefer SEMO in this game for sure. SEMO just lost at home to SIU Edwardsville. They lost to Lindenwood the game before that. People are going to see that too. Oh, Lindenwood beat SEMO, and then UT Martin beat Lindenwood. So how am I getting points with UT Martin, right? Like, it looks so easy to play UT Martin here. Again, that is not what I would do. I like SEMO in this game. Problem I have with it is Ken Baum's rankings are like way different on this game. He's got UT Martin in the top 200 at least, although he has them very lucky, 10th in the country in luck. He has them a better defensive team than offensive team, very significantly actually, and a slow team. So all of that kind of checks out. But he has Southeast Missouri way worse, so I don't know what's going on. He has them 262nd. He's got them a fast tempo team, though, so they might actually speed the game up a bit. And that's actually good for SEMO if they could speed the game up and throw UT Martin out of their element because UT Martin wants to play very slow. Southeast Missouri is bad on both sides of the ball, though, offense and defense. So there is a big defensive edge on the UT Martin side here. He does have Southeast Missouri as an unlucky team, though, at 257. So there is all that. But he has them widely disparate in the rankings. Ken Baum, I think, actually has SEMO losing the game. So that's what I worry about. The number is a little bit wonky on this, but I would play Southeast Missouri if I was going to play it. 80% of the tickets, 93% of the cash on Southeast Missouri. Money seeming to agree with it. You might be able to get 2.5 on this now. Money line on them might make sense too. And then if you do money line, actually, it will take the points out of the equation. And then that's actually more preferable depending on the number that you can get on it. Let me actually see. Am I going to add this one? Hold on. I'm going to look right now. Because I think this might be one where the numbers guys are going to actually still take the points with UT Martin, because I think the number is a little bit off here. SEMO, the money line, the best you could do is like minus 145. It's tempting, but I guess I'll stay off of it. But that is the way that I would lean in that game. Number 10, Michigan State is at Oregon on Fox Sports 1. Michigan State is doing the Pacific Coast thing. They just beat Washington on the road, beat them soundly. Now they play Oregon. They don't really have anything upcoming. They play atrocious Maryland next when they come back home, so it's not a horrible spot for Michigan State, I wouldn't say. They're adjusted to the time zone now, whatever. Oregon not playing well, though. Oregon did just lose to Michigan at home. I don't believe the game was really that close. So I do think Oregon should at least show up for this game. They did just lose to Nebraska horribly the game before that, too. Oregon's going to be at least desperate for a win, man. And they're a home dog here. The money looks like it is coming in on Michigan State, up from 10 to 11. 79% of tickets, 90% of the cash on Michigan State. Yeah, they're the better team. You know, the spot isn't horrible for Michigan State, but I don't know, man. I think it's going to be kind of an ugly, low-scoring game. The total is low at 137. Money looks like it's coming in on the under. To me, it kind of makes sense to lean towards taking the points with the home dog in this one. Expecting the game to be a bit ugly. Michigan State plays slow. They play defensively. Oregon plays these low-scoring games as well. So probably I would lean towards taking the points in that one, but I don't have a great opinion on that at all. My next game, my final play in college basketball, is this Peacock game. Number 12, Texas Tech at Baylor. Let's get it done, man. This is another best bet. We're going to be on Baylor here. I'm almost certain we're going to be fading the public on this one. This is a horrible spot for Texas Tech, man. Ranked 12th in the country. Yeah, I mean, Texas Tech is good, obviously. Ken Bum has them being a little bit overranked because he has them at 21st. They're a decently balanced team again. They play kind of a mid-tempo style. They are lucky. 80th in luck in Ken Bum's luck index, even though they faced a gauntlet as well. 6th in strength of schedule. But Baylor's only 20 ranking spots behind them. Not horrible. Baylor's almost as good offensively as Texas Tech is. They're just worse defensively, which I know there's a big difference there. Texas Tech's better defensively significantly, but I like the spot here. Baylor's lower in the luck index at 239. Baylor has faced a strong schedule as well, 17th. They play a mid-tempo style as well, so the tempo is not going to be a concern. Both teams play a similar tempo. This game is really all about the spot, though. That's usually what it comes down to with me. Look at what Texas Tech has done, man. They just beat BYU by double digits at home. That was a huge win against 11-ranked BYU. Texas Tech beat them on their on Texas Tech's home floor. Huge win for Texas Tech. Now they go on the road to face Baylor, and Baylor a little bit under the radar here, maybe 1-4 in conference. Might be easy to overlook. And who does Texas Tech play next? Oh, yeah, on Saturday, I believe. They got to play Houston, which is a monster game. Houston, I think they already played once. Yeah, and Texas Tech played them close, and Houston beat them. It's a monster game anyway, but it's an in-season revenge spot, a second meeting against Houston as well. I think Texas Tech might consider themselves to be a little brother in the state of Texas to Houston as well. Texas Tech did beat Houston once last year, but that is a monster game on deck, man. So this is a sandwich spot for sure. And if you look at what Texas Tech has done on the road so far, they haven't really been on the road that much. I mean, they played competitively. They lost only by 4 at Illinois. That's not a bad loss. They lost that game at Houston only by 4. Also not a bad loss. But they only beat Colorado by 2 on the road, and those are their only road games so far. So they're pretty non-road tested here. Although I know Baylor, they're just staying in the state of Texas here. But going from Lubbock to Waco for this, I don't know, man. I think it's a bad spot. I think it is a sandwich spot. Going on the road for only the 4th time is not that easy to do. I think Baylor's going to be up for this game, man. Baylor's going to want this thing. Baylor's coming back home, and Baylor just got pretty much wrecked at Kansas. I mean, no real shame in that. Although, we had Baylor on the show in that game, and Baylor did not cover. But because of that, that sets up a better play to take Baylor here, man. That was that Friday night game. Baylor just didn't play well, and I think Kansas got up for it more than I thought they would. I thought Kansas was going to be in a huge letdown off of, I believe, beating Iowa State, but whatever. Baylor didn't get the job done, but now Baylor's back home, coming off a loss, and the last time they were at home, they lost to Houston. And I said I like that. When a team in college basketball returns home, and the last time they were here, they lost, they usually step it up, man, and play with a lot of focus. They actually lost their 2 previous home games here, but it was against Iowa State and Houston. I mean, those are pretty much elite teams. So Texas Tech is actually a step down from those 2 teams. So that's what Baylor's getting here. I think Baylor could definitely get this thing done. Baylor getting a very small underdog price here. Ken Bum basically has the number right in line with this. So there's no real, the line is not way off or anything like that. You might be able to get a little bit of a better number on this. Texas Tech moving up a little bit, 1.5 with juice. I see 60% of the tickets, 84% of the cash on Baylor. I think it's going to be a pros versus Joes type of game where it looks way too easy to play Texas Tech, the team that's ranked, the team with the better record. And, when it looks too easy, it usually is, but the spot also sets up very nicely, I think, for Baylor. I think Baylor is also going to consider themselves to be a little brother in the state of Texas here and want this game even a little bit more for that reason. And then I don't think there's any Big 12 conference revenge. Oh, no, there is. Oh, my God, it's even better than that. I didn't even look. I didn't even see this. Baylor lost to Texas Tech in the Big 12 tournament last year. So let's add that into the mix as well. I love Baylor in this game, man. This is a revenge spot for last year when Texas Tech was the team that ended. Well, they didn't end Baylor's season because both teams made the tournament, but still, Texas Tech was the team that bounced Baylor from the conference tournament. So there is a little bit of a revenge motive for that. And Baylor lost to Texas Tech during the regular season. I think they only played once during the regular season last year. Texas Tech won that game as well. So it's double revenge for Baylor here as well. We're all over Baylor in this game, man. That's the other play in college basketball today. That's probably the best one. I love Baylor in that game. All right, the ESPN game is a pretty good one at 9 p.m. between number 15 Vandy, who's starting to drop a little bit, and number 20 Arkansas. Vandy's still pretty legit, though, man. Ken Bum has them 12th. And then, although they're more the rankings makers have them more correctly ranked now. And Ken Bum's got Arkansas 23rd. So rankings makers are not too far off with these 2 teams, although there's a little bit of a disparity there where Ken Bum has Arkansas being a little bit overranked by the rankings makers and Vandy a little bit underranked by the rankings makers still. So maybe that means there's going to be a little bit of value on Vandy here. This, of course, is also the ESPN game because it's going to be 2 fast-paced teams playing here. These teams are going to go up and down the floor, man. So an over might be in order in this game as well, which is why ESPN likes this game, man. Really high total at 174. I would not disagree with an over in this one. Again, both teams are just going to be running the floor, playing fast. Vandy is the 4th most offensively efficient team in the country. There's going to be a lot of scoring going on. Both teams are in the top 10 in offense, and both teams are outside of the top 20 defensively. Arkansas, in fact, is 63rd. So there's a huge defensive disparity here. Vandy's the better defensive team here, significantly so. But either way, both teams are better offensively than defensively, so I don't disagree with an over. The money seems to agree with that. Under has 50% of the tickets, but 98% of the cash on the over. Now, the money has come in early on Arkansas. They're up from 1 to 1.5. 54% of tickets on them, 66% of the cash on them. From like a numbers perspective, I don't think I agree with Arkansas here, even though the cash is coming in on them right now. We got to see what the spot is, but I already said there's a huge defensive disparity here between these 2 teams. So Vandy is the better defense getting points here, and I like that. The better defense getting points. Vandy is coming off 2 losses now, though, but I think the spot is actually pretty bad for Vandy because even though a lot of times I'll expect a team to bounce back if they lose the same game twice, but Vandy took their first loss in an ugly loss at Texas. I forgot to mention that in my bracketology last night. I have Texas out of the tournament right now, but they did have that win over Vandy. And I think they beat Alabama. But, yeah, Vandy did not bounce back, which made sense to me because that was their first loss of the season. And sometimes you get hung over in the next game. But in that game, they really, really had a huge game against Florida, man. So I think both Florida and Vandy are kind of in fade spots coming off a game like that. I almost said in spade spots, in fade spots. That was a tough game, man, and now Vandy has to go back out on the road, so the scheduling spot, I think, does actually favor Arkansas here. Arkansas just had a pretty ugly loss at Georgia, so I think they're more in a bounce-back spot here. So numbers-wise, defensively, I'd be leaning towards Vandy, but the situational spot usually wins out for me, and that has me leaning towards Arkansas. So do what you will with that information, but I guess based on the situation, I do have to slightly lean towards Arkansas. And I do like the over in the game. And the over might be the better way to look at that game. Number 21, Georgia at Missouri on SEC Network. Georgia having a good season, obviously. They just had that big win over Arkansas. Now they're going to go out on the road to Missouri. And maybe a spot where maybe Georgia doesn't have full focus here in this one. Missouri just took a loss at LSU in their last game. But it was a tough game. I mean, LSU was a favorite in this game. Missouri put up a fight in the game. So I don't know if I really love Missouri in this one, but I think I would probably lean towards Missouri here anyway. But Missouri looks like a public underdog, which you know I don't like. A public home dog, I do not like that. 75% of tickets, only 60% of the cash on them. And Georgia's flipped from a 1-point dog to a 1-point favorite. So the money looks like it is coming in on Georgia. The market read says Georgia, but the situation, I don't love the situation there for Georgia. So do with the information what you want. Utah is at Kansas State on CBS Sports at 9 p.m. So this game gets a TV spot for some reason. Utah just got their first conference win. It was a pretty decent win over TCU. I think Utah was a dog in that game at home, and they won. But that might actually give them some momentum as well because Utah did not have a conference win yet, and that ended a losing streak. And again, like I said, sometimes that gets that monkey off your back and you play better after you get a win like that. But they do have the Holy War Part 2 up next against BYU. BYU already beat Utah in Utah, so that does set up as a pretty major look-ahead potential there for Utah, looking ahead to that revenge game against BYU. So I do have my concerns about Utah for that reason. For Kansas State, they're coming off a loss at Oklahoma State, coming back home. Kansas State doesn't even have a conference win yet, so I think they're going to be pretty desperate for one. They have a big game next against Kansas, so both teams have look-aheads here. Obviously, huge Kansas rivalry there. Kansas State playing the little brother. But I don't think Kansas State can really overlook anybody right now. I mean, Utah's coming off a bigger performance, beating TCU. Kansas can't afford to overlook anyone with the fact they've lost every conference game so far. And if you look at the line here, both teams are 9-9. Kansas State doesn't even have a win in conference, yet they're laying 9.5 points. So the odds makers are telling you Kansas State is actually the better team. Utah is just not a very good team. So the line just looks really, really odd in the game. I think I would have to lean towards laying the points with Kansas State for that reason. It's expected to be a fairly high-scoring game as well. Kansas State up from 8 to 9 here, total in the high 160s. Money looks like it is coming in on Kansas State early. We got an ACC network game at 9 p.m., SMU at Wake Forest. SMU might be in a tough spot, man. They were a loser for us on Saturday, and I'm pretty frustrated about it because I thought they caught Virginia Tech in Virginia, and what was a bad spot for Virginia. SMU put up a big game in that game, and they still fell short. Now they're going to go on the road to face Wake. Could be a bit of a hangover spot for SMU here, man. And you look what SMU did the last 4 games. They played 5 games, really. They beat North Carolina, played tough against Clemson, tough against Duke, both on the road. Beat Virginia Tech. That was the one game where SMU probably should have played better than they did. We won with Virginia Tech plus the points in that one. Still, it's Virginia Tech who might be a tournament team, and then SMU had to play Virginia after that. So they've had a really difficult run of games here. Wake just barely got by Florida State in the last game. You can explain that because Wake had close games against Miami and North Carolina in the 2 prior games. So I think they were in a sandwich spot, man, going to Florida State. Florida State, I think, did cover still as long as you got one of the better numbers in that one. I thought Florida State might win the game outright. They didn't, but not a great game for Wake. It's definitely explainable. They had this SMU game on deck. They do have Duke up next, though, which is a bigger game than this game is, but I would lean to Wake in this game. I think the spot does set up better for them. That's what I would do here. They've gone from +1 to a pick 'em here, so the money does look like it's coming in towards Wake in this one, and the public is probably going to lean towards the team with the better record, which is SMU. All right. We do have Auburn at Ole Miss here on ESPNU at 9 p.m. Auburn coming into this game off of barely getting by South Carolina. Auburn was a bigger favorite in that game, man. So Auburn didn't play well, so they should be more focused coming into this game. However, as I mentioned before, they have a huge revenge game against Florida up next. Florida, the team that bounced Auburn in the Final Four of the tournament. So that is a major revenge game for Auburn coming up, even though Auburn does have different players this year and stuff like that. But still, there are differing factors in this game. There are negatives and positives for Auburn in this one. Ole Miss just won on the road in an upset, actually, at Mississippi State in their big rivalry against Mississippi State. And they got Kentucky up next. Kentucky's got that name behind them, man, and Kentucky's ahead of them in the standings. So it is possible Ole Miss overlooks Auburn in this game, man. So I actually prefer Auburn in this game, but I really worry that Auburn might be looking ahead to that Florida game. That would be my one concern, but the hope would be that Auburn playing really poorly against South Carolina will refocus Auburn in this game. They're up from 2-3 on the road here, which also looks pretty weird, right? Like, how could Auburn 11-7, both teams 11-7, Auburn worst conference record, but they're laying 3 points on the road? That looks weird, right? But the odds makers are telling you Auburn's actually the better of the two teams. I have them making the tournament right now, and Ole Miss not even being close. So I agree, Auburn is the better team. I would lay it with Auburn if I was going to play it. Peacock has number 4, Purdue at UCLA at 10 p.m., getting really late here. Purdue's already out west, though, and Purdue didn't play well in their first game there against USC. So Purdue might show some more focus in this game, but they do face Illinois next when they come back home. So there is the potential look ahead as well. UCLA is coming back home, and they just lost at Ohio State. You got to think they will be focused against Purdue, although UCLA is having to travel here, whereas Purdue is already in California. So there are some things that are better for Purdue in this game. Purdue's a 6-point favorite. Does look too easy to lay the points with Purdue, though, as the ranked team, obviously. 65% of tickets, only 58% of the cash on Purdue, so the money is fading Purdue. It's going to be probably a lower-scoring game. Both of these teams play pretty slow. 147 is the total here, so that makes it more tempting to take the points with the home dog, but there are some things I don't like about it for UCLA, man. I like that Purdue's already out in California. I like that Purdue's coming off a kind of a scare against USC. I don't know, man. I think I would not really want to be on UCLA in this one. UCLA's having to travel back. So I would maybe even slightly lean to Purdue in that one. I don't know. That one I could see, like, there might be a bunch of sharps coming in on UCLA there, but I definitely worry about it. Number 19, Kansas at Colorado, 11 p.m. Here's a late night game for you on ESPN in the Mountain Time, and it's this late. That's crazy. Kansas just beat Baylor. Nice, satisfying win. I think conference win. No letdown off of beating Iowa State. So now Kansas is coming off of 2 big wins, and now they got to go to Colorado. I know this is another ESPN game, but are they going to really care about an ESPN game at 11 at night on a pretty packed Tuesday board? In elevation, I don't know, man. It looks bad to me. Kansas has been bad on the road so far as well, man. Look at what they've done on the road so far. They lost at North Carolina, although I know it's North Carolina. They're good. They barely got by NC State in overtime. Lost at UCF and lost at West Virginia. So Kansas could very easily be 0-4 on the road so far. So they have not been good on the road. I know Colorado's not good, but Kansas also has their rivalry game against Kansas State up next, so there's a potential look ahead maybe. Colorado's lost 3 in a row, and you got to think they're going to be frustrated and looking to bounce back here. They just lost at Cincinnati and at West Virginia. Now coming back, they played pretty well against Cincinnati, and then I think they were just in a hangover spot at West Virginia. If you remember, I liked West Virginia in that game, and I wish I added it to my card. I almost did. Now Colorado's back home. They're hosting an ESPN game against a ranked Kansas team. Colorado's been a little bit better at home. They beat Utah at home. They almost beat Texas Tech at home. So this is a team that they're at least not a pushover at home, man. So I like Colorado in this game, plus the points. Kansas only laying 5. Looks really, really easy to lay the points with Kansas, man. I know Kansas also did well in a similar spot for their backers. Not the Baylor game, but I think the actually, no, I guess, oh, no, they didn't, I guess, because I might have been thinking about that West Virginia game, but I think I actually had West Virginia in that game, if I remember. I don't remember, actually, but whatever. Or I think we faded West Virginia in the game after that. I don't know, I forget. But Kansas, I mean, they've been good pretty much to their backers recently, I think, especially after that win over Baylor. Public is going to be heavily on the Kansas side. I think the spot is actually okay to play Colorado here. 93% of tickets, 97% of the cash on Kansas. I would take the points with Colorado in that one. And then Fox Sports 1 has Utah State, who has dropped out of the rankings, up against UNLV. UNLV just beat San Jose State, whatever. Now it's a 4th road game in 5 games, though, which is not going to be easy for UNLV. And Utah State did just take their first loss, which is what dropped them out of the first conference loss, which is what dropped them out of the rankings here. They lost at Grand Canyon. Grand Canyon, decent team, man. Utah State probably overlooked them, kind of a weird spot to go and play. Grand Canyon, they kind of have like, they're almost like the Righteous Gemstones. They're like, I don't know, like corporate conservative or corporate Christian, if you know what I mean. Like, it's kind of like that type of atmosphere there where it's, yeah, the program's been built up and there's all this, I don't know, corporate Christian money that's been put into the basketball arena and stuff, and it is wild. You can go find videos of it. It looks like a fun place to go to a game. But yeah, Utah State lost there. Now, I will say that even though that wasn't a good loss, so the fact that it wasn't a good loss should have Utah State bouncing back, but when teams lose a long win streak like that, sometimes it does hang them over into the next game. So I do have my concerns about that. I don't think Utah State's going to lose. They're a 17-point favorite now, up from 16.5. It looks like some of the money has come in on Utah State, but, you know, I mean, it's not a game that I want to get involved in at all. Yeah, I just don't even know what to do with the game, to be honest. I would probably prefer, I don't know, man. The road spot is just really ugly for UNLV, though. So I don't even know. I mean, I would probably just lean with whatever the market is saying, though. Right now it is saying Utah State, but, man. I mean, there's no way that I want to get involved in that game. All right. We'll go to hockey and then NBA, and then I'll be out of here. Oh, let's see here. Although, hold on a minute. I'll be right back. Man, this is going to be like a 2-hour video just because of all this college basketball. And tomorrow's going to be even worse. I'm going to die. All right, hang on 1 second. All right, let's get to hockey here. One play in hockey for me today. All right, we have all evening games. Minnesota and Montreal is the first game up here. Minnesota is on a back-to-back. They played yesterday. They beat Toronto, but you remember they caught Toronto in a really bad spot. That one almost made my card. I was a little bit concerned about how the setup was for Minnesota there, but they got the job done. Toronto was returning home from a long road trip. It was a terrible spot for Toronto, really. Minnesota won the game. Now they're on a back-to-back. They're going from Toronto to Montreal, which isn't a ton of travel, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, they should still be focused on Montreal, I would guess, but they're playing a third game in 4 days, all in different cities, so that's not easy. Montreal did not play yesterday. But Montreal, they're coming off a win over Ottawa. That's not a big deal. They've had a couple of days off, but the worst thing for Montreal here is they're returning home from a road trip. And they've been on the road trip for a week. Now, they stayed in the Eastern time zone, Washington, Buffalo, Ottawa, and they're already back in the area, I guess, because they just played Ottawa, so maybe that mitigates the return home spot a little bit because they're already close to home. But you know me, I worry about the return home spot because it can be a distraction. Teams have to get back to family life, whatever. So there are some concerns here, although I don't think they're going to overlook a team that's good like Minnesota. So I probably slightly lean to Montreal in this one. The money does seem to agree. Down from minus 145 to minus 135. 53% of tickets on the Wild, but 98% of the cash on the Canadians, on the Habs, the Canadiens, les habitants. Anyway, yeah, I lean to Montreal slightly in that one. The Habs is such a stupid name. I mean, Canadians is whatever. Okay, yeah, you support your country. All right, fine. But yeah, the Habs is so stupid, man. The habitants. We're the people who live here. Yes, thank you. We know. All right, San Jose at Tampa Bay. San Jose, of course, got us that nice win last night in a game that really got chippy with that huge brawl that happened with the goaltender fight in the middle of it. So I don't love San Jose at all. So I was like, we got to fade San Jose in this spot, right? And I was thinking that until I saw the spot that Tampa Bay is in. And then I'm like, yeah, I guess not. We're staying away. But San Jose, huge game last night. They're playing a back-to-back now. They got the big win against the returning champs, Florida. Now they got to go to Tampa Bay. Now, they might still show up for a game against Tampa Bay. They should, at least, because Tampa Bay is a really good team. But that was a huge physical game against Florida last night, man. So San Jose is definitely in a bad spot, I would say. They will have Askarov back in net as well, or Askarov, however you pronounce his name. He's scarring you. They've lost his last 2 games, so that's not a good sign for San Jose, although it's a small sample size. Tampa Bay's been on fire, though, but here's the reason we can't play on Tampa Bay here, man. They just beat Dallas, for one thing, on the road, 4-1. So that was a huge win for Tampa. Upset win at Dallas. Or no, actually, I think Tampa was favored, right? Yeah, I think we actually liked Tampa in that game here on the show, although I worried that they were going to be in a hangover because they lost a long win streak, but whatever. I believe they were actually favored, crazy as it sounds. Still a big win over Dallas, though. But not only does that set this up as maybe a letdown for Tampa Bay, but they're returning home from a road trip that they've been on since the 10th. So they've been on the road for a long time, man. So Tampa's returning home from a road trip, and what do I always say? When teams return home from road trips, it's a distracted spot. They have to get back to home life. They have stuff to do. They have to go right back out on the road, although they have the week, basically, before they do. They have to go on the road on Friday to Chicago, but when you have these weird single-game homestands sandwiched in between 2 road trips, yeah, I call it a road trip sandwich. It's one of those sandwiches you got to eat on the go, man, but sometimes it gets the job done. It nourishes you enough. It keeps you going forward. So it's a horrible spot for Tampa Bay. Like, those return home distractions could get into play here. So both teams in bad spots, when that is the case, I usually like to lean towards an over. Tampa Bay down from minus 305 to minus 288 on the money line. 90% of tickets, 96% of the cash on Tampa Bay. Do with that information what you want to, but I don't even want to recommend a side in this one really at all. I hate both sides, so I can't do anything with a side here. If you want me to tell you, I guess Tampa's probably in the worst spot. San Jose is already in Florida. And at least there is that for San Jose. So I'd probably, I guess, lean towards the San Jose puck line, but I still think the better way to do this is over. And I know it's over 6.5. It's flipped to being juiced to the over a little bit. 56% of the tickets and 78% of the cash on the over, but I see no other way to look at it, man. San Jose is going to have their worst goalie in net. The fatigue from yesterday might affect their defense. Tampa Bay, with the distractions coming in, that might affect their defense as well. So I like the over in that one. Ottawa at Columbus. And that would have been one that probably would have been on my card last year because I was dabbling in the totals. But I'm being a little bit more selective this year. Although, again, I got to keep an eye on these things, right? I got to remember what I said about these totals. So hopefully I can remember. I'll remember that one, the over in that one. And then I think I said over in a couple of those basketball games that I'll have to remember. It means I have to go back and watch this show and try to figure out where I talked about this stuff. Oh, God. Maybe I could do it. Ottawa at Columbus. Ottawa's playing a third game in 4 days in different cities, which right away that worries me because I don't love that as a travel spot, although they're only going from Detroit to Columbus here, which isn't that bad. But they did play 2 overtime games Saturday, Sunday, losing both to Montreal and Detroit. But those are tough games, man. So I could see this being a negative for Ottawa, maybe a hangover spot coming up those 2 games. Columbus coming back home from a single-game trip to Pittsburgh where they did win in a shootout. That was a big win. They do have Dallas and Tampa Bay on deck. Those are big games as well, so I worry about maybe a look ahead for Columbus here. They've had 2 days off, but maybe that's actually not a good thing because they've won 4 games in a row. And when teams have days off, sometimes it will hurt winning momentum if they have it. So this is a hard game for me to read. I'm not going to do anything with it. The money is coming into Columbus for what it's worth, so basically think of that scheduling for Ottawa with the travel between these games, a couple of overtime games coming into this game, that the spot's a little bit worse for Ottawa. I don't have too much of a reason to disagree with it. 62% of tickets, 91% of the cash on Columbus. Money is indicating on Columbus, and Ottawa is a minus 110 favorite there. So both teams basically at minus 110. So probably, yeah, I guess, slightly agree with the market there, but no strong opinion. My Boston Bruins are on TNT and HBO Max at 7:30 p.m. against the Dallas Stars. Let's see here. The Bruins coming into this one on a big win streak. They've won 6 games in a row, but really it's kind of an unimpressive win streak. I mean, they beat the Rangers, although, yeah, they beat them 10-2, so that's impressive, I guess. But they beat a Pittsburgh team that I don't think is as good as what their record looks like. Detroit was the best win that they had over the stretch. Then they beat Seattle, all those games at home, and then they won on the road at Chicago. These wins are just not that impressive for the Bruins, man. And now they're stepping way up in class to face Dallas. So I do worry about that. Bruins have had 2 days off, which might hurt their momentum, like I talk about. So that is a little bit of a worry as well, because when you're winning games, you don't want to have days off. Although 2 days off, I guess, shouldn't be that much of a concern. Dallas, though, has lost 3 games in a row, and I think they're going to be coming into this game pretty angry. Dallas was on a long road trip, which might be part of the reason why they've been struggling recently, although they were struggling before that, too, at home. But they returned home, and they lost to Tampa Bay, and that was that game I just talked about. It was a bad spot for Dallas because, again, road trip return, sometimes you just fall into this major distraction spot, and you have to get back to home life, whatever. So they did not play well, but now they're in their second game back home. Usually when that's the case, when you return home and you have a really bad game in the first game, usually you focus a lot more in the second game. So, I don't even know what I want to do with this game, though, because I think the spot's a little bit better for Dallas, but they've dropped from minus 195 to minus 140, which kind of leads me to believe that they're not even going to use Ottinger in net tonight, because the Bruins, I believe, will have Swayman back in net. I think they used Korpisalo in their last game, right? Yeah, they did. So almost definitely it's going to be Swayman for the Bruins, so they're better goalie. Dallas, was going to think it was going to be Ottinger because he plays the majority of their games, but it might be DeSmith, and maybe that's why the line has moved down. I don't know. Ottinger being their primary goalie, obviously. Dallas down from minus 195 to minus 140, though, for some reason that I think is not just market movement here. 94% of the tickets, or excuse me, 74% of the tickets and 73% of the cash on Dallas. So the market read is saying Boston as an underdog here, but I still don't really see it. I kind of disagree with it. Buffalo at Nashville. This is the final play that we have here. And Jeffrey's not around because he's going to like this 3 plays in a row that Jeffrey's going to like. Because for me, it's all about the spot, even though I think Nashville is terrible. I'm not a fan of Predators, but I think Nashville's the right side in this game. We're going to be on Nashville on the money line. It's around -129, -130. We're going to fade Buffalo. First of all, Nashville being a favorite with a weak record like they have against a team with a better record like Buffalo. Nobody's really going to want Nashville in this game for that reason. Buffalo was pretty hot recently until their last couple of games. They lost a couple of games, but this setup is just really bad for Buffalo here, man. I think this is a sandwich spot. And look at the games that Buffalo has played recently, going back to Monday, January 12th. Basically, they lost to Florida by 1. Big game there. They beat Philadelphia 5-2. Nice win against a team that's been playing well. Beat Montreal by multiple goals. Nice win. Those games were on a back-to-back as well. Then they played Minnesota at home and lost in overtime. Another big game for Buffalo. Then yesterday, they started the road trip and went to Carolina and only lost 2-1. And that game was tied in the third period, 1-1. So Buffalo had a huge game yesterday and fell just short. And now they got to go to Nashville with no turnaround time. And on Thursday, they got to play Montreal, and that's a bigger game, even though they just beat Montreal. Montreal and then the Islanders. Those teams are just, I think they're bigger games, man. And Toronto after that as well. I mean, we're talking about more games that are just geographic rivals, teams that are just better teams in their conference or whatever. So to me, this looks like a sandwich spot big time where they could easily overlook Nashville here. They're playing a third game in 4 days, all in different cities as well, which is not easy to do. And for Nashville, they just got smoked by Vegas in their last game, 7-2. It was a horrible game. Win for us on the show because Nashville beat Colorado the game before that. It was a back-to-back. It was a very strange 2-game road trip for Nashville. And Nashville was actually playing decently recently. They were stepping up against better opponents, man. They beat the Islanders back on the 8th, beat Washington, both of those games at home, beat Edmonton at home. So they've been playing pretty well at home, other than a ugly loss to Chicago that was kind of in a sandwich spot, even though Chicago was a rival of theirs. But then they went out on the road. They beat Colorado. I mean, this Nashville team, I still think they're ass, but they have been competitive recently, man. And then, of course, predictably, after that Colorado game, no turnaround time at all. They had to go to Vegas, and they got destroyed. We predicted it, but now they're back home. And yes, I know, returning home from a road trip, I usually don't want to be in a team that's doing that, but they only were on the road Friday, Saturday, so it's not like they really had a lot of time for things to build up at home. So I don't think they're going to fall into that typical return home distraction spot because they just haven't been away for that long. And when you lose 7-2 to like anybody, even though, yeah, they lost a win streak, only a 3-game win streak, though. You lose 7-2, I think you're going to be angry and show up with more focus in the next game. It was a predictable loss. Again, it was a horrible spot. Saros should be back in net for them. At least it's not Soros. A lot better than Soros. Saros should be back in net for them. He is their better goalie. So, yeah, that's good for Nashville as well. Buffalo, I just don't care who their goaltender is because I don't think their goaltenders are that good regardless. Nashville has dropped from -135 to -128, but we see 50-50 on the ticket count and 91% of the cash on Nashville. Let's make it Cashville, baby, and let's get a win with the Nashville Predators in that game. That is my one play in hockey here. St. Louis is at Winnipeg. St. Louis just got killed by Edmonton 5-0 a couple of days ago, so they should be in bounce-back mode after that. It was a bad game, and St. Louis had just beaten Carolina and Tampa Bay the 2 games prior to that. So I think they maybe just ran out of a little bit of steam there or something. I don't know. It was a terrible game. Of course, Binnington was in net for that one. He's been awful. I don't know what else to say about it. They might put Hofer back in net for this one. Hofer. I don't know. But I think St. Louis will show up after losing 5-0, which is really, really ugly. I think Winnipeg is the team that eliminated St. Louis from the playoffs last year, if I'm not mistaken, but they did beat Winnipeg once already this year, so they got some revenge already, so I don't really know if that's going to be a factor in this game. They do play Dallas next, so you do worry about the look ahead a little bit, but after you lose 5-0, I think you're going to just focus on your next game regardless of who your opponent is. Winnipeg had gotten back on a little bit of a roll, but now they've lost 2 games in a row. But they did get shut out in their last game against Chicago, but it was yesterday. So they're playing a 3rd game in 4 days with travel between all the games, and they play Florida next. So that could be a bit of a look ahead as well. So I think the spot's not great for Winnipeg here, and it will probably be Comrie in net here because Hellebuck's played a bunch of games in a row. So I don't love it for Winnipeg here. I probably would have to lean to St. Louis in this one. Winnipeg dropped from -160 to -125. Although I think that was because of the goaltender decision here. Although I don't know why the line would have been out at -160 anyway. You could have pretty much anticipated that was not going to be Hellebuck in net here. But whatever. I think that's why the line dropped. 67% of the tickets and 99% of the cash on Winnipeg, though. So it looks like the cash percentages on Winnipeg, but I don't really agree with it in that one. New Jersey at Edmonton. New Jersey coming into this game off of beating Calgary yesterday in overtime. Not an impressive win. They are on a back-to-back now, which does worry me for New Jersey. 3 games in 4 days, all in different cities. That's a concern as well. But they did escape against Calgary, who's not a very good team, so maybe New Jersey was already looking ahead. Maybe they will show up for this game still. Edmonton didn't play yesterday, though, and they're staying at home, but they're off of 2 shutout wins, although it was against Vancouver and St. Louis, which isn't that impressive. But Edmonton, I don't know. They might be feeling a little bit overconfident maybe after those wins is what I was thinking. They're up from -155 to -175 here. Of course, I think you might get a little bit of extra value maybe on New Jersey because New Jersey is on the back-to-back here. I kind of lean New Jersey in this game despite being on the back-to-back. I just think Edmonton might be feeling a little overconfident. They got Pittsburgh next. That's still a big thing, Edmonton-Pittsburgh, because they did the goaltender switch. So that's the goaltender rivalry upcoming for Edmonton, even though they've already played since then. But I would lean to New Jersey slightly in this one. All right, and then we have the Rangers at the Kings. We have the 2 teams that have the most ridiculous home-road dichotomies here. So does that mean we want to be on the road team here? Well, I'm not so sure. Because even though, I know the Rangers are way better on the road and the Kings are significantly worse at home. The Rangers just played yesterday. They're playing a 3rd game in 4 days, all in different cities, although they are only going from Anaheim to LA here. But still, they played yesterday, and yes, they lost. The Rangers are without Shesterkin, which really hurting them. I don't know when he's going to be back. The Kings have lost 4 games in a row, and they've had time off. So rest-wise, the Kings have a huge advantage here rest-wise. They haven't played since Saturday, and they're staying at home here. And they were only in Anaheim, so they've pretty much been in the LA area for over a week now, and they've lost all of those games. So I think they're really going to be focused on trying to get this game as bad as they are at home. A lot of the games have been close. Some of them against good teams as well. So I actually don't lean towards the home road disparity in this one. I actually lean towards the Kings. You're paying a little bit of a price, especially because of the rest edge that they have, which has to be factored in. But they're down from -170 to -167, 81% of the tickets and 95% of the cash on the LA Kings. I agree with the Kings in that one. You'd probably have to do like a split bet like I do with the puck line and money line there. All right, and then we'll finish it with NBA. I don't like the NBA board at all, man. I don't have anything in the NBA today. The first game up, 7 p.m., is Phoenix at Philadelphia. Phoenix is coming into this game off of beating Brooklyn. They're on a back-to-back. They're playing a 3rd game in 4 days, 4th game in 6 days, a 5th game in 8 days. Yeah, 5th game in 8 days, and 6th game in 10 days, all in different cities. So it's not easy for Phoenix having to play all these games on the road, man, like this with travel between them. So Phoenix, they're not going to be a very well-rested team here. Philadelphia coming into this game off of beating Indiana, an easy win yesterday. They're on a back-to-back as well, but that was a much easier win, and they're staying at home. So to me, the spot is a lot better for Philadelphia here. They do play Houston next. There's a potential look ahead there, and then the Knicks after that, but I don't think I could possibly be on the Suns in this one. The money is coming in on the Suns, and I just don't really see it Like, this travel spot doesn't look good at all to me. 56% of the tickets, 74% of the cash on the Suns. Sixers down from 1.5 to 1 there. So the money is coming in on the Suns, but I just don't really see it. The Clippers also played yesterday and let me down. They're going to Chicago. Clippers, better than their record looks. They did still win last night, so their momentum continues. They did have 2 days off before that game, so they're not quite in as bad of a rest spot as Phoenix is. They do play the LA Lakers when they come back home, though, so that could be a potential look ahead because that's going to be a big game, the Battle of LA. And the Clippers are like the little brother of LA. Chicago just stayed at home, didn't play yesterday, and beat Brooklyn. So the spot, I think, is better for Chicago, although they play Minnesota and Boston next. The spot sets up way better for Chicago, but one issue I might have here is that Chicago might be in a reverse injured player spot because it looks like Josh Giddey may indeed actually make his return finally in this game, which is why the Bulls are up from 1.5 to 4 here. 77% of tickets, only 73% of the cash on the Bulls. So even though the scheduling spot, I think, does favor the Bulls, that line move might be a little bit too much, man. You know what I always say? When your star player comes back, he's been off for a while. He's been off for, I think a month. Giddey's been out for almost a month. And when he comes back, he has to get back into game form. He's got to get used to playing again. The team's got to assume their new roles again. There could be, a chemistry thing that needs to happen. So they don't necessarily gel right away. And the odds makers have to move the line to account for him being back. And usually they overreact to it. So because of that, I guess I would probably agree with fading Chicago if Giddey is indeed coming back here. But I don't love it. The scheduling spot just doesn't look good for the Clippers to me. So I don't want the Clippers either here. The Battle of Texas in this NBC doubleheader. This is a good game. Spurs at Houston. This is the best game of the night for sure. These teams are pretty much intact and healthy as well. Now, Houston's a favorite in this game, and the odds makers are telling you Houston's the better team. So I think the public's going to have a tendency to want to grab the points with the Spurs. Spurs are kind of the flashier new team on the scene. The public doesn't really like Houston. Doesn't really like the way that they play. They kind of, I don't know, focus on defense, although Houston does actually hit threes pretty well at home. But, yeah, I think Houston's being undervalued here, man. Houston's really good at home, 14-3. Spurs only 13-8 on the road. I know this is still in Texas, but Houston's not that close to San Antonio. I think Houston's, they're going to have the advantage of the home crowd here. For the spot, San Antonio did just beat Utah, although that was yesterday. So San Antonio did have to play a game yesterday, although we got the cover with Utah in that game. San Antonio had that sandwiched in between this game and the Minnesota game that they played before that. But still, San Antonio did play yesterday, and they're still having to travel, although it's within the state of Texas. But the rest spot is better for Houston because they didn't play yesterday. And Houston is coming off a game where we actually had the New Orleans Pelicans as well, and they covered for us. And Houston had played Minnesota the game prior to that as well. So we got wins with both, fading both of these teams against bad teams when these teams were in a Minnesota/Texas sandwich, interestingly enough. But Houston is already back at home. They're staying at home. They've been at home since January 13th, so they've stayed put for a week. So I think they're going to be ready for this. They're coming off kind of a bad game against New Orleans and staying at home. I prefer Houston in this game. That would be the way that I would play it if I was going to play it. They're down from 5.5 to 4.5, though, and the money looks like it's coming in on the Spurs, but I do not agree with it. To me, they look like they're going to set up as kind of a public road underdog here, which I don't like. We'll see what the market looks like when the game happens. 60% of the tickets, 77% of the cash on the Spurs. And yes, the total is low, so taking the points is a little bit more tempting when the total's low at 221. But again, it's the NBA. Points get scored. So I would lay it with Houston if I was going to play the game. Dirty Sock, what's up, man? Thanks for hanging out. All right. Minnesota at Utah. This game, I don't even know what to say about this game. Minnesota, of course, did just play Houston and San Antonio. They've had multiple days off after that, though. They haven't played since the 17th. Coming off 2 big games, though, so they could still potentially be hung over and having to go out to elevation here. Having 2 days off might help them rest up a little bit and break that losing momentum, so it's not all negative for Minnesota. And maybe they will try to even up the road trip and go 2-2 on the road trip, but coming off those tough games against Houston and San Antonio, I could still see this being a bit of a hangover spot for the T-Wolves here, excuse me. But I also don't want any part of the Jazz. When the Jazz are returning home from a road trip, and they played San Antonio last night, it wasn't exactly a close game, although they covered, whatever. But they're returning home from a road trip, man, and have no time off, so that's not something I want to get involved in. They've been on the road since last Monday. Yeah, and when you return home, of course, it can be a distracted spot, man. You have to get back to home life, whatever. Minnesota, they shouldn't really overlook Minnesota, but Utah plays San Antonio again on Thursday, excuse me. So today's Tuesday. On Thursday, so I worry about that. They're in a Spur sandwich here. A San Antonio sandwich, which is probably, I don't know, what the fuck do they eat in San Antonio? Some sort of, I don't know, like maybe even a Mexican, a torta is, they're in a torta spot here. I don't know, but yeah, I mean, the return home spot's just bad, I think, in general. Like, teams are going to be distracted. They're playing a third game in 4 days, fourth game in 6 days, fifth game in 7 days, actually, all in different cities. That's a rare spot, 5th and 7. And it's also a 6th game in 9 days, all in different cities, 7th and 11 as well. It is a spot where I just don't want any part of the Jazz, man. I think they might run out of steam here. The T-Wolves did go up from 10.5 to 12, 85% of the tickets on them, 58% of the cash coming back on the Jazz, though. And I understand it because I think you could argue the T-Wolves are in a bad spot as well, but I actually probably prefer the T-Wolves in this game, to be honest. The Jazz are just in a horrific, like, nightmare of a spot. So it might be one of those spots where you shouldn't really be afraid to lay points on the road in the NBA, although I don't want to do it, obviously, because I think the T-Wolves are not in the greatest spot either. But generally, like I say, there are some spots where you might want to lay double digits in the NBA. It shouldn't be a rule. Like in the NFL, it is kind of a rule because it's a lower scoring game that you really don't want to lay double digits on the road. But NBA is a different animal. We do have the Lakers at Denver as the other TV game here on NBC and Peacock. And unfortunately for the schedule makers, Jokic, you don't get Doncic versus Jokic in this game because Jokic is still out. So you don't get the battle of the white boys in this game, unfortunately for the schedule makers. Luka is back for the Lakers. I think he might have come back in the last game. He missed a couple of games. Actually, I think he only missed one game, the Portland game. He came back, and LA won the game easily against Toronto and covered. So there was no reverse injured player spot to be seen there. Now LA is starting a road trip. I think they will be focused because when you start a road trip, you're usually focused to start the road trip. They're not going to overlook a team like the Nuggets. So seems like a fine spot for the Lakers to me. For Denver, they're staying at home off of a really, really bad loss against Charlotte, which did break a win streak for them. They'd won 4 games in a row, though they were very unimpressive wins against pretty bad teams. So Denver, yeah, they're struggling a bit without Jokic, although they're still keeping up their record here. And, of course, they're going to make the playoffs, and they're going to have Jokic back by then. So, I wouldn't worry that much about Denver. The spot is fine for Denver, though, man. I mean, they're staying at home, coming off that ugly, ugly loss to Charlotte. So I probably do prefer Denver in this one. The Lakers did flip from a 2-point favorite, 2-point dog to a 2.5-point favorite. 62% of tickets, 61% of the cash on the Lakers. So the Lakers are actually a little bit of a public side here, which seems a little bit crazy. Again, the Nuggets would obviously be favored if Jokic was playing, although he is not, of course. He's been out for a while. I don't know why the line moved like this on the Lakers, because I looked at the injury report, and the other Nuggets injured players that are always on the injury report, Aaron Gordon and Jamal Murray are both playing in this game. They're day-to-day, but they're both going to play. So I don't really know why the line moved up like that. I probably prefer Denver plus the points in that one. Toronto at Golden State here. Toronto, like I said, just got blown out by the Lakers on Sunday. Now they're staying in the Pacific time zone here, going up to Golden State. They've lost a couple games in a row. After a blowout loss, Toronto might show up with some focus against Golden State here. Problem with Golden State, as you just saw there, I didn't want to give it away what I'm about to do here. Golden State, they did just win yesterday against Miami. And, of course, they caught Miami in a good spot to catch them because Miami had beaten the Thunder in the game prior. So I told you I leaned to Golden State in the game. They got it done. They blew out Miami. So it was a good win for Golden State. Golden State's playing better recently, man. They've won 6 of their last 7. Some games in there against good teams, mostly not good teams, but they did beat the Knicks and Miami, and they're in Milwaukee. I think did have Giannis when they played them. But anyway, Golden State just beat Miami, but that was yesterday, so they're on the back-to-back. So looking at it just from a scheduling perspective, I would prefer Toronto in this game, plus the points. But then I go and I look at the line, and I'm like, oh, what's going on here? The Warriors dropped from 6.5 to 3.5. Money is still coming in on the Raptors, though. 69% of the tickets on the Warriors, 75% of the cash on the Raptors. But why did the line move down from 6.5 to 3.5? Well, if you saw what happened yesterday, it was, it was a little something like this.
Oh, yeah. Hey, Jimmy. Jimmy's ready. Jimmy's got some new moves. Go, Jimmy. Check Jimmy out. Jimmy's down!
Jimmy is down, and it is not good, man. Jimmy Butler is out for the season now with a torn ACL that occurred last night. So huge blow to the Warriors. He's been one of their best players, obviously, and he's younger than pretty much the rest of the team. Even though he's not exactly young, compared to them, he is. Huge blow to the Warriors, but that does mean that you're going to get some line value on the Warriors here. And you know what I always say, when one of your star players is injured, that first game, the team usually steps up their level of play to account for that. They usually have a good game in that first game, and you get line value on it because the line has over-adjusted usually. The money in this case is still coming in on the Raptors, and I still think the scheduling spot does favor the Raptors, so I'm staying away from the game, but I got to play the Jimmy's down clip, so there you go. So there are definitely conflicting handicapping scenarios in this game, man. So I got to just stay away from it. And then finally, we do have Miami at Sacramento. Oh, boy. Sacramento at least does have Sabonis back, though, so they're a more intact team now. And Levine, I think, is still back. Miami just took that ugly loss to Golden State. It was last night, though. But, of course, as I said, they were in a letdown spot. They beat Oklahoma City the game before that, so it was a letdown spot. Although I thought there were maybe some reasons why they might still show up focused in that game, but they just didn't have it. And Butler played a majority of that game, too, so he went down later in the game, I'm pretty sure. Now Miami has to go up to Sacramento with no time off, but they are staying in the Pacific time zone. They are coming off a very ugly loss. So maybe they will bounce back, but it is still a third game in 4 days, all in different cities, which is ugly. And Sacramento is coming off an ugly loss at home to Portland. Now, they did lose a win streak, so sometimes that will hang you over, but Sacramento's staying at home, didn't play yesterday. They've been at home since the 11th, so I think Sacramento might actually be in the better spot here. They definitely have more rest. I'm still pissed at them for losing that game against Portland. I think that was the second game with Sabonis back, but whatever. So looking at the injury report, just making sure what we have going on here. It's a mostly clean injury report, but Tyler Hero is still out from Miami, so he's not going to be back for a bit. So that's the one main injury here in this game. But he's been out for a while, so it's not going to affect the game-to-game here. The Heat are getting all the money, though. They're down from 4 to 3.5, but they have 92% of the cash and 52% of the tickets on the Kings. I don't understand that. Like, what public bettor is actually going to be on the Kings? That doesn't make any sense to me. Like, I actually probably prefer the Kings in this spot, but the money is all coming in on the Heat, and again, it's a stay away from me. So that's going to do it. Once again, the plays today. Oh, and of course, StreamYard has to screw up here. There we go. There's my face for you. Once again, the players are being super selective today. We're going to be on LSU plus the points in college basketball. Baylor plus the 1.5 or 2. I love this one, man. I think this is the best play of the day. Baylor. Love it. And then in hockey, we're going to be on the Nashville Predators on the money line. Those are the only 3 plays today. And a pretty big board, but we're getting selective after yesterday. I think it was a smaller board, and we kind of splashed the board. But we did get a win yesterday. Let's just keep it up, man. This is just the way that I see today. So getting a little bit more selective. That's going to do it. Thanks for hanging out, everybody. Learn to Toad on Twitter. Learn to Toad on Instagram. Like, subscribe. Give me good comments on the channel here. Listen on audio. We're on Apple, Spotify. That helps me out. Give me good reviews there. That helps me out. Covered in Uke is my Uke channel on YouTube. Patreon.com/LearnToToad. You get bonus uke stuff, which I know I gotta update the feed again. Haven't done that many covers recently, man. My voice just a lot of times isn't up to it, so I'll get back to it. I got to do a couple of the requests, I know. And then Loser Cast will return tonight at 10 p.m., so you can check that out, the new comedy spectacle that I'm a part of. That's going to do it. I'll be back tomorrow morning, I suppose. Let me look real quick. I mean, Wednesday is usually a big college basketball card, and usually a lot of the big conferences playing. Tuesday, Wednesday, usually that's the case. Yeah, I'll still do it in the morning. It's not a gigantic card. It's a little bit bigger than today's, I think, or board, I should say. That's going to do it. Peace for now, everybody.